friends, if you like this podcast, we hope you'll check out another one, Trinity Forum Conversations. Our friends at the Trinity Forum are all about exploring timeless wisdom from the Christian tradition for today's divided world. On Trinity Forum Conversations, host Cherie Harder and guests apply the riches of that tradition in our time. For those of you in the Nashville area, on October 13th, there's a chance to be part of a live Trinity Forum evening conversation. We'll be joined by Malcolm Geit, who will draw upon Merlin's Isle and Arthuriad, his forthcoming epic poem on the legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, to bring the epic tradition of Lewis, Tolkien, and many others into the 21st century. Register now for the Nashville evening at ttf.org and get Trinity Forum Conversations wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey friends, it's Jonathan Rogers. Before we get started with the episode, I want to tell you about the Focus Retreat that's coming up at the end of October. In many long years as a writer, I've learned two things. One, when I need to jumpstart a project or get big chunks written, it's really helpful to get away and get significant time alone. And two, significant time alone can pull me into a whirlhole of self-absorption that makes it nearly impossible for me to jumpstart a project or get big chunks written. It's the great paradox of the writing life, this need to be alone, competing with the truth that the inside of your brain can be a pretty rough neighborhood where it isn't always safe to be alone. That's why I put together the Focus Retreat, October 26th through the 30th, at the beautiful Scarrett Bennett Center in Nashville, Tennessee. The idea of the Focus Retreat is simple. You'll have 4 days dedicated to focused work on your current work in progress, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, or poetry. You'll have big chunks of time to write, punctuated by 3 check-ins a day at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, plus evening events designed to keep the fountain of creativity flowing. One night we'll hear Nashville songwriters playing in the round. We'll spend one evening at the Rabbit Room's Northwind Manor. We'll hear from a working writer or two. To summarize, the Focus Retreat is 4 days in October in which your only responsibility will be to write. We'll feed you, give you a place to stay, give you time and space to write. You'll have plenty of alone time, but you won't be isolated. You'll have the support, accountability, and fellowship of writer colleagues who are having the same experience as you. If you're looking to make progress on a writing project, the Focus Retreat could be a huge boost. Participation is limited to just 20 writers. If you're hearing this, there's still some space left. You can find out more about the Focus Retreat and register at thehabit.co/retreats. That's thehabit.co/retreats.
Envy is one of those things that when you are sharing vulnerably and authentically, it is so powerful to confess that and to show how, to kind of say out loud how it's kind of taking root in our hearts. And then once you confess it, it has less power over you.
Welcome to the Habit Podcast, conversations with writers about writing. I'm Jonathan Rogers, your host. When Kate Gaston's Substack hits my inbox, or when her name appears at the top of a Rabbit Room article, I pay attention. Her essays are usually hilarious and always wise. That's why I asked her to speak at the opening night of the Habit's Focus Retreat at the end of October. I always love talking to Kate, and I thought it'd be fun to invite you into the conversation in this episode of the Habit Podcast. Kate Gaston, I'm so happy to have you on the Habit Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm delighted. It kind of feels a little surreal. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I've been so loving your articles on the Rabbit Room that you've been doing, and of course you're the speaker. You're the featured speaker at the retreat I'm putting on in October, and I thought this would be I just wanted to. I love talking to you in general, and I thought it'd be fun to talk to you in a way that's recorded.
Thank you. I'm nervously anticipating the experience as well. Let's get.
Well, I know the general theme you've been writing about, at least for the Rabbit Room, is hospitality. I don't know if this is more specific or more general, but I've been pondering the article you wrote about creativity and generosity. Now I can't remember. I'll put a link in the show notes, but now I'm drawing a blank on the actual name of that article.
Okay,
do you remember the name of this article?
Creativity.
What's that?
The heavy lift of creativity.
The heavy lift of creativity. Yeah. And so I thought it'd be fun to talk about generosity a little bit. That's one of the big values at the Habit membership. And so generosity and creativity.
Yeah. Go.
And you make I mean, everybody, not everybody, it's not unusual to see the case that putting beautiful work out in the world is an act of generosity. That in playing out or in really acting out the image of God in creativity, we are doing people and the world good by putting work out there. And in your article, you quote Seth Godin, and I can't remember what you quoted Seth Godin saying, but another thing Seth Godin says that I love is make things better by making better things. And I think that's part of the role of a person who does creative work. But you also make the case that while that is a vitally important part of what people do when they make stuff is show the glimmers of the glory of God, another act of generosity is to share not the finished product, but the process, where things are still a little bit, or maybe a lot, messy. And as you say, vulnerability is a vital part of relationship. So I'd love to hear you just riff on some of those ideas.
I love that. I think I really appreciate that. I don't know. I feel honored that you read that article. Thank you. And I love talking about it. I think it was kind of born out of this sense of like I was reading a lot of books at that moment about creativity, thinking a lot about it, and all of the books kind of were like, it's good. It's good to make things. It's good to send them out into the world, which I absolutely agree with. But I was like, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're made in the image of God and we see aspects of his character and nature when we show the world kind of how we see his beauty or, his creation. But why is it generous? Why that word?
Mm-hmm.
And then how can we go farther with it? Like, I think creating is extremely excruciating process. For writers particularly, we're just like sitting in your room and you're like looking at these words on the page and they just won't be right. And I think one of the things that kind of makes the habit so magical, and I don't mean to make this an advertisement for the habit, but go ahead, sign up if you haven't. Go ahead and come. Because it is those moments where we're getting to show kind of like the broken nature of our own creative process. We're showing that it is hard. We're showing that it is messy. And I think it's easy to look at artists who have put their work out in the world and say, wow, that is really good. I will never be able to make something like that. And so in some ways it's to be able to get inside those crevices of, the emotionality of making. That's where the generosity is for me, because the vulnerability lives there.
We're always comparing our rough drafts to the completed drafts of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good way to feel inadequate and like you're never going to arrive, because that's what people put in the world is what's finished. And that's in a really important way, that is our job, is to put the finished product.
Yeah.
To make things that are done and send them out in the world. What do you mean when you're talking about sharing your vulnerability, though?
Well, I think like there's this whole kind of untapped experience, or could be untapped. I mean, it's a blanket statement, but the experience of creating is vulnerable. Vulnerability is one of the linchpins of it's a relational glue. It is like, that is the thing that when we bond with people, it's because we've allowed ourselves to be vulnerable. So I think for me, this was like okay, how do we use the vulnerability inherent in creativity and in the making process to build community? That's it. And it looks like The Habit. I'm going to just tell a quick story since you are trapped here on camera with me. So my writing journey, I didn't go to school for this. I was in medicine. And then suddenly writing kind of exploded onto the scene about 4 years ago. I still lived in Baltimore at the time. I was writing in a vacuum. I didn't know anybody that was doing it. I just knew I had something inside that I needed to get out. And then we moved to Nashville. I met Katie Bowser Hudson, who's an amazing woman. She invited me to the Habit Retreat at Northwind Manor. This would have been 2023. And I remember thinking, I can pretend to be a writer for a weekend and go to like, that was my mindset. I'm going to fake it. And then once I was there, you just have this beautiful way of doing exactly what we're talking about, which is putting people in contact with each other at varying levels of success or published nature, what have you. And we just get to talk about how hard it is and how, the howling woe, the envy, the competition, all of those things that are ugly that we don't want to share. But when we share them honestly and vulnerably, kind of magical stuff happens.
When you talk about sharing being vulnerable, you're really talking about connecting in the process of making with other people who are making. Mm-hmm. You're not so much talking about spilling onto the page in what you put out into the world with your struggles, or are you?
In this context, I'm talking about making in community, writer circles, having a close group of friends that you are kind of brutally honest about the struggles of making with. I think there's a lot to be said for vulnerability on the page in this case, as we're writers, and how to do that well, how to do that poorly. But in this context, what I'm talking about is the hospitality of just being vulnerable as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. To return to that retreat that you showed up for, you're telling me at that point in your life, you didn't think of yourself as a writer?
That is correct. At that moment, I'd probably been writing, like putting words on my laptop in a Word document, as a form of therapy, basically, kind of that cathartic. I had kind of a devaluing experience as a stay-at-home mom at that point. And it was just like rage writing, like 40-page rage writing. And it just came out. So it really wasn't until coming to Northwind Manor, coming to that Habit retreat, winter retreat. And Katie was your featured podcast speaker, which she's just beautiful and gracious and generative. And even though she refused to be my mentor for life, she did agree to be my friend. And I don't know, I'm going to just list people. Like Micah Hawkinson came up to me and said, whatever it takes to help this writing get out into the world, I will support you. Reagan, Robin Wall. I remember Robin came up to me and after the kind of like open hour, where I had read my writing for the first time in public, and it was terrifying and exhilarating. It was amazing. And she came up to me and Jonathan, she said, "You're a writer." And I was like, to be named, I don't know, somehow to be named by someone that had never met me before was just this powerful moment. I think that's what you get. Sometimes people see you better than you see yourself. It could call things out of you, but it never would have happened had I not stepped into what felt like a really awkward, scary space of reading my writing out loud in a group of people.
Yeah. I guess maybe I didn't understand that, or maybe I understood at the time and forgot, because I don't think of you. I just think of you as being a person. Well, as long as I've known you, you've seemed like a writer, and because I guess I met you that weekend. That's amazing. And as you said, you need other people speaking in your life and saying, here's something you might not have known about yourself.
Yeah, the clarity that people can offer in those moments. For me, that was a positive experience. But when you are sharing vulnerabilities around the creative process, I mean, I think this is why it's so vitally important to have a core group of people. And I think I'm moving from kind of like a broader community, like a habit retreat where you're kind of meeting a lot of people at once, to now the importance of having this kind of like small, close knit community of people that know you intimately, as a writer, and know precisely what you're struggling with, um, because you're able to tell them. So, I mean, I think I'm just going to keep saying the word envy, which nobody wants to talk about because it's ugly and it's gross. It's a very icky kind of thing to experience, but it is there, with, I would say, almost everyone that I've ever met. Um, Recently, Andrew Osenga came to our, we had this event at our church where he read some excerpts of his new book, which is lovely. Go read it. And then we had this great Q&A, and he said this beautiful thing about how envy had effectively stolen from him a decade of work. How finally, after a decade of struggling with this, he was able to celebrate his friends. And then, in that finally being released, he was set free to write and to create what he was called to create. I know Andrew's been on your podcast before. I think I actually said he was actually one of the habit speakers, maybe. And
That's right. Yeah, he was. I think it was the most recent. No, this past year. I guess it was winter of this year. He talked about that very thing in the podcast episode that we recorded at that retreat.
so, thank you, Andrew. That was powerful. Just to know that envy is one of those things that when you are sharing vulnerably and authentically, it is so powerful to confess that and to show how, to kind of say out loud how it's kind of taking root in our hearts. And then once you confess it, it has less power over you. And you're and they love you and can encourage you in the way that you just really precisely need them to encourage you.
There's a Catholic catechism. I don't know anything more about it than I don't know if it's the Catholic catechism or a Catholic catechism that defines or describes envy as a kind of sadness, an inability to be happy with what you've got and be sad because someone else has something that you don't have.
Yeah, nothing against that catechism. It doesn't feel like sadness to me. It feels like more of a volcanic rage or, murderous death wish, something like that. So sadness.
It's coming out sideways. It's sadness. Okay. I know you're a fan of Lewis Hyde's book, The Gift.
Yeah.
I know. Am I right about this?
Wouldn't it be awkward if I was like, I hate that book. I hate that book.
No, or if you said, no, I just Googled a quotation from that book from my article.
Get a quotation for this article. No, I did in fact read it. Yes, and quoted it in that article.
Yeah.
Only I feel like that's important to say. I do have the thing where I have to read the book in order to quote something. So there.
Wait, every book you quote, it's because you've read it?
I mean, if I'm going to quote something, there is like this might be controversial, but I feel a moral obligation to not be cherry picking things because I might have no idea what the context is. So yes, if I have written the quote, I feel reasonably confident to say that I have read the book or the source that it comes from.
That's what I like to hear, Kate.
Oh, good.
You're raising the bar.
Envy is one of those things that when you are sharing vulnerably and authentically, it is so powerful to confess that
when it comes to
show how to kind of say out loud how it's kind of
if I give something away, I have less.
And then once you confess it, it has
when it comes to intangible goods, when I give something away,
and they love you and can encourage you in the way that you just really precisely need them to encourage you.
This is exceedingly relevant to art, right? I mean, I guess if I give away a painting, I don't have that painting anymore. But if I'm giving away beauty, I mean, in that sense, the painting is a tangible good, but art is an intangible good. When you give away beauty, there's not less beauty. I'm not short on beauty now.
Yeah, nothing
I
against that
find that
catechism. It doesn't feel like
and
sadness
it's
to me. It
also
feels like more of a
possibly
volcanic
a cure for
rage
envy.
or, murderous death
It makes it
wish, something
a
like
little
that.
easier
So
to see that
sadness.
other people who are trying to make beautiful things are my allies instead of competition, and that there's not a finite amount of goodness out there for us to enjoy.
Wouldn't it be awkward if I was like, I hate that book. I hate that book.
Well, yes. Thank you, Lewis Hyde.
Get a quotation for this article. No, I did in fact read it. Yes, and quoted it in that article. Only I feel like that's important to say. I do have a thing where I have to read the book in order to quote something. So, yeah. I mean, if I'm going to quote something, there is like a more, this might be controversial, but I feel a moral obligation to not be cherry picking things because I might have no idea what the context is. So, yes, if I have written the quote, I feel reasonably confident to say that I have read the book or the source that it comes from. Oh, good. And so it can choke out the beauty of what we're making and our contentment with the gifts that God has given us. But it is also, it makes me directly in competition with you or whoever else might be writing in my genre or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And to remember that, the words are infinite is hard to keep in mind.
Yeah. And it feels like there is only so much, I don't know, recognition or glory or something to go around. And I mean, it's true, attention is finite. And if you're doing your work for attention, I guess maybe you are in competition with other people who are trying to get attention. But
It's really boring and it stinks to write for that to that end. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I think it's a developmental stage for most of us to go through. Why am I doing the thing that I am doing? And it's extremely human to chase after the likes, the clicks or whatever demographic you're trying to reach. But it becomes really boring and kind of soul sucking, and it just feels gross. So don't do it. Don't do it for that reason.
noted.
Okay.
I'll stop. I'll try to stop. So you are involved in at least one writers group, right? Is it more than one?
It's a problem now. I'm starting to think maybe I have a problem. like a community vulnerability addiction or something. I'm just kidding. But so the habit I consider kind of like there is a layer of connectivity that I have there. And mostly it's that winter retreat that like it's like a pilgrimage at this point. I go back and it's a pilgrimage to remember where I came from, just the story, the history of where it kind of started for me. And then I am in two other writers groups. One is a little bit smaller than what I would say the habit retreats are, and then one is a group of four women, women of a certain age, and we meet, and we just call ourselves loosely Women Who Write, and it's lovely. I wouldn't say that it's always about writing, but it's more about the sense that writing is a part of who we are. We are also complex creatures, and we have lots of concerns and thoughts and cares. And it's pretty fabulous how we meet maybe maybe twice a month. And when we meet, it somehow naturally works out that someone, without intending to, takes center stage, or there's something big or intense that they're struggling with that then we're all able to kind of weigh in on. It's like accountability group, but specifically writer flavored. I cannot recommend enough.
So you are in that group. You're not bringing manuscripts to read and talk about.
Nope. We might give like an update, like here's what we're working on this week. Here's and this specific to this one. My medium-sized writing group, we have like a section of teaching time. Then we have kind of somebody volunteers to bring a work in progress, and it's kind of a more focused specifically on writing. But I think what I'm talking about, like with the vulnerability and the ability to kind of talk about the really sticky things like envy or competitiveness or scarcity mentality, that comes out with a small group of women where we're staring at each other's eyes and know each other and trust each other. Trust being kind of a fundamental part of being willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I don't know if you know Diana Gleyer's book Bandersnatch, but she walks through different kinds of writers groups, and your two smallest groups there. You've covered two of the categories.
Okay.
Yeah, that a writers group. You think of a writers group as being a place where people pass around manuscripts, and that's one way to do it, but it's not the only way to do a writers group.
Yeah, I think I think that those are both great avenues. But I recently, I hope this is okay, Jonathan. I didn't ask your permission, but I met two women recently who were like, "Hey, I'm new to town, or I'm just getting plugged in. I'm a writer," and I was just like, "The Habit. This is a place to start." This just like, it's kind of like it's all the things. You've got a beautiful online workshop situation. You have intensive focus retreats. You have your more kind of like nurturing, come and get to know you kind of retreats. So you've made a really beautiful thing. You have a gift for putting in people in spaces where that kind of hospitality and vulnerability can come out to play.
Yeah, well, thanks for saying that. Thanks for naming that and for recruiting those two people. I have in recent years realized, a big part of my calling is sort of making spaces for people to do their thing. And I thought I thought my calling was some sort of teachery thing, and that's an aspect of it, but it's not. I don't think it's the center of it, as it turns out.
I totally agree with you. You're the very first that first habit retreat I went to. You have a couple of like sections where it's like, okay, Jonathan Rogers is going to get up and talk. So I'm like, I've got my notebook like ready, and like I'm like listening with everything I have. And then you just proceeded to have a conversation in which you welcomed other people's opinions. And I was like, can everyone be quiet, please? He tried. And then I was like, oh, this is the beautiful thing that he's doing. There was some like element of teaching, but you just welcomed us all into the conversation. I was like, okay, this is actually more helpful. And,
I do believe that any group of people is smarter than any one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's why I do those particular sessions that way.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it requires a little bit of guidance.
Nudge us back onto the rails. I think that so both recently within the Rabbit Room world, Timothy Jones and Andy Patton have both written excellent essays on creativity and community. I can't recommend them enough. Go look them up. They're on the Rabbit Room Substack. So I don't know. Rabbit Room itself. Here I am going to give them a free commercial too. Is doing this, like going to Northwind Manor for fika or Stilla. If you haven't done it, it's awesome. I live about 35 minutes from Northwind Manor, so it's always kind of like am I going to go? Like, am I going to make this drive? And then I go and I find myself in conversation with fabulous people every time, and it feels a little uncanny. But they have created this place of hospitality, and their whole point of that space is to welcome, everyone. But man, there's a pretty heavy collection of artists, writers, and I know that I'm going to just plug this. I know that the term creatives has been bandied about, and I know that they have done a lot of work to blow open that phrase, because we are all of us creative. We are all of us made in the image of God. Nobody gets a pass. I don't know how your creativity comes out, but you are creative.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I got onto the soapbox right now, so I'm going to just step off of it and stop talking now.
It's one of my favorite soapboxes. I get on it sometimes, but yes, we feel free to get off the soapbox and get on another topic, and that is, you've been doing this series for the Rabbit Room, a monthly series on generosity.
Or hospitality.
Yes, sorry, hospitality. Thank you. And so your series on hospitality, you're about 6 episodes into this monthly thing? Is that right?
So January through September, and I will
Oh, it's
be
been
on.
since January.
Yes, it's been since January. I think I missed 1 month just due to life getting in the way of writing, as it sometimes will do.
Yeah. So what is the process when you miss a deadline? Like, is there a disciplinary hearing or something like this at the Rabbit Room?
Nope, it just didn't happen, and nobody threw rocks through my window, thankfully. So I mean, I had at that point, usually my articles come out kind of towards the end of the month. And I think I had like a rough draft. It just needed more finesse and a little extra time to kind of make it what it needed to be. So it wasn't like I had just dropped the ball. It just didn't make it.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
How did this series come to be?
Well, trying to remember all of the exact details. I had, let me back up. So after that Northwind Manor retreat where Robin came and said, "You're a writer," I started to believe her. And I started to write some poetry, which I hadn't done for 20 years, since, my angsty high school days. And I'm sorry, you're about to get another story. Here we go. It's not a succinct answer. So I'd written this poem, first one so long. And again, Katie Bowser Hudson comes into play. She was leading this Advent poetry reading at our church, like a church event. And I saw her that morning, the morning of the event, and I said, "Katie, I have written a poem, and unless you look me in the eyes and say, 'Kate, would you like to read this poem?' I will absolutely not do it." Imposter syndrome, all that. Mm-hmm. And so the event comes. I'm holding my notebook and kind of hoping she forgot who I was. We're in a small, a living room setting. There's a few people that I know. There's a few people that I don't know. There's a guy sitting next to me who I've never met before. And as the night unfolds, as luck would have it, I read this poem sandwiched between T.S. Eliot and Wendell Berry poems, which, I mean, come on. Come on, Katie. But anyway, she did finally look at me and she's like, "Kate, would you like to read this poem that you've written?" And so I read the poem. And as I was reading it, you can kind of situational awareness. I was aware that the guy next to me was kind of just jotting down in his journal, something that I'd said, which kind of felt like, oh, maybe I'm not as terrible as I think I am. Or I don't know, maybe it's a grocery list. I don't know, but I'm going to assume the best. But I read my poem and it was that is sometimes what victory feels like, is having overcome the fear and the imposter syndrome and that inner critic that's just pummeling you with doubt. So I read the poem. After the poetry night ended, as we're all kind of getting up and getting our refreshments, I turned to the guy next to me and we introduce ourselves, and it is Andy Patton, who had just moved to Nashville to work at the Rabbit Room. And so that was the beginning of this friendship that then kind of snowballed. We all have these people in our life who, when they say, "Hey, do you want to do this thing? Or would you consider trying this out?" You say yes. Andy is one of those people for me. He got me involved early on in the Rabbit Room Poetry Substack, which please go check it out. It's a thriving, 15,000 subscribers at this point. So it's this
it's great
behemoth of a poetry group. And early on, he had a few of us write a blurb about where do you find time to write? And each of us wrote like a little paragraph. And he emailed me, he's like, Kate, would you consider making that paragraph a full-length essay? And immediately had a like cortisol adrenaline dump and hyperventilated. I said yes. And so that was my very first Rabbit Room article. And I think it was, how to find time to write. And then it just kind of kept snowballing. He would pitch ideas and I would write them. I would have ideas and pitch them and he would say yes and I would write them. And then it kept coming. And I don't know how hospitality became the theme, but he came to me at the end of 2024 and suggested this as a topic. And I thought, that sounds great. And it was very broad. There was no prescriptive, he was very like, take it however you want to, go wherever you want to. And so every month is kind of this experience of like, what do I want to talk about with hospitality? Because it feels like it's just one tiny little thing, but like the creativity and hospitality that came out of it. Because I was like, it is hospitable and welcoming to welcome people into our vulnerabilities as artists.
Yeah.
Long answer to your.
Well, I'm super excited that you're going to be speaking at the end of October at the Focus Retreat. And I, like Andy, I like to give you assignments. And so I asked you to comment on what hospitality has to do with a writer's retreat. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to ask you to answer that question right now because I want to hear your answer on October 26th. But I'm super excited to know that you're going to be there and addressing us because I love the work you do. Like I said, I guess you have told me that winter retreat you came to was super important in your process. I didn't understand the extent to which, just how new to it you were, though, or I forgot. So that was a real funny, a real fun story for me to hear.
Today. I will just continue to plug it. Like if you're out there, if you're listening to this podcast and you have been on the fence about attending one of the habit retreats in any form, do it. For me, that it was, it is not an understatement to say that it was a crossroads. I can't say like God has his purposes that he's gonna do what he's gonna do. But like, had I not shown up, had I not read out loud at the open, story hour, had I not kind of, I don't know, like who knows what would happen, but please go to the retreat, sign up right now. You probably have a link right at the bottom of the screen.
I will now, thanks to you, Kate. All right, I'm gonna. Feels completely out of the blue, except that it's what I always ask at the end. So, who are the writers that make you want to write? Who's making you want to sit down and do the work lately? Kate Gaston.
That is such a great question. Ooh. Okay, this is going to be. I don't want to be weird about it, but I love Stephen King so much. I was exposed to his writing way too early. Don't recommend, for your 10-year-old child. Maybe, I don't know, that's up to you. But my younger brother and I laugh because we, all three, me and my two brothers, we watched the Stephen King miniseries, It, when it came out like a gazillion years ago. And it's him, inhabiting the sewers as Pennywise the clown. Like my brother wouldn't take a shower for a month because of like the sewer scenes. The writing changed us. And I wouldn't say that I base my writing off of him, but he does have a certain kind of edginess to his writing, or like a willingness to maybe say something that, I don't know, is impolite or is, off the beaten path, the way of words that he has. And then Anne Lamott is my other go-to. I feel that I would like to think I'm pretty similar to Anne. Anne, if you're listening, but she's like, I would say probably a little more visceral and edgy than I am. But her kind of vulnerability, I think, is something that I love to emulate. Her willingness to kind of like shine a light into those dark parts of our souls that we don't like to. I don't know. We don't like people to see those parts of us, and she does it. So.
Yeah, she does. Well, you'll be happy to know that you're not the first person to mention Stephen King in response to that question. And I've gotten Anne Lamott a few times. Well, Kate, thanks so much for being here. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. And so looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
This was really fun. And I really appreciate the opportunity. I can't wait. And go ahead, click that link, sign up.
Thanks. See you later. Bye. The Habit Podcast is brought to you by The Rabbit Room, where art nourishes community and community nourishes art. You can support their work, including this podcast, by becoming a member. Visit rabbitroom.com/membership. Special thanks as well to Taylor Leonard for letting us use her song Diamonds as the theme music for the Habit Podcast. You can learn more about Taylor and follow her work at taylorleonard.com. The Habit membership is a library of resources for writers by me, Jonathan Rogers. More importantly, The Habit is a hub of community where like-minded writers gather to discuss their work and give each other a little more courage. Find out more at thehabit.co.
If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, consider joining the Rabbit Room membership. Your membership helps sustain this community, funding everything from publishing and podcasts and theater productions to events and programs that support artists who create with a Christ-centered vision. We'd love to have you on board. Learn more at rabbitroom.com/member.